All right. All right, welcome back. I hope you guys had a great week last week. We really kind of gave an outline on what the class is going to be like this semester. I tried to tell you the various points on how we're going to build this information. So, who remembers what we talked about last week?
Strengths and weaknesses.
Strengths and weaknesses, very good. Pardon me?
Objectives.
Objectives, very good. What else did we talk about?
How to be a good leader.
How to be a good leader. The foundation of any management, whether it's recreational food service, restaurants, hotels, resorts, whatever it happens to be, it all starts with your leadership abilities. Okay? And so that's why I like to start the class with this. And when we talked about that, we talked about a particular management philosophy. Do you remember that management philosophy?
POA.
Who said POA? Very good. And what does the P stand for?
Planning.
Planning. Yeah. So we're going to create great plans. And then what are we going to do?
Organize them.
We're going to organize the plans. And then what are we going to do? We're going to take action. And what were the three components of action?
Leading.
Well, that's one of them. Staffing and controlling. Exactly. Very good. Okay, so we've done a little bit of a review. All right. As you can tell, I passed out some goodies this week. And Ariel asked the question, like, these are really nice cups, and where did they come from? So you want to pass me that cup right there? This is what they call a double wall cup. Okay? You seen these before? Yeah. And so why is what's the term double wall and what's the value of a double wall cup?
It insulates it.
Insulation, right. So if you have a drink in here, and I'll say it's a soda, okay, and it's got ice in it, it's probably about 34, 35 degrees, and you put a 98-degree hand on it, what happens to the ice?
It just
It melts. Yeah, but by having a double wall cup or an air gap on the inside, it insulates it. So Ariel, your question is, so what's up with these cups, and is it a secret, and so forth and so on. The reality is, we talked last week about value propositions, and how do we get things to look like they're worth more than they actually are. In this channel of business, we try to buy the lowest cost items and sell them at the highest price. And you're going to find out more in the next module. We start talking about profit planning while we do that. Okay? As a matter of fact, I could tell you that in movie theaters, we could charge $2 for a large drink. All right? But we'd have to charge $20 for a movie ticket. So what's our goal? Our objective in the movie business?
Lower ticket price.
A lower ticket price, why?
So more people come to the movie.
That's exactly right. And the same thing happens in stadiums and arenas and amusement parks and so forth and so on. So they try to bundle or create incentives for you to get there and then develop secondary revenue streams behind that. So some of them would be like video games. If you notice, movie theaters used to have a lot of video games. One of the trends now is to create bars, more significant menus. So we're trying to create other streams of revenue. In this particular case, these cups right here were developed for us to sell during Star Wars. You can see it's the Star Wars collectible cup. How many of you have seen these in stores? Anybody seen one of these before?
Not the exact one, but I've seen some of them.
You've seen some Star Wars cups, but you haven't seen this cup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The reason it's a collectible cup is because there are very few of them out there. Now, in our particular case, this cup cost about $2.90. A typical paper cup cost about 5 to 6 cents. So why would I not use these cups if I was in the movie business, if I was at Malco Theaters?
I mean, it's more expensive to use a plastic cup.
That's right. As a matter of fact, it's like $2.90 more than the current vessel that we have. So I'm giving away that profit. How would I get that profit back if I wanted to?
Raising ticket prices.
No.
Charging for refunds.
Charging for refills? Yeah, kinda, you're almost there.
Charging.
Instead of charging $6 for a large drink, I might charge $12 for this cup. That makes sense? Now I'm gonna get my $2.95 back plus whatever the margins are. Now, how many of you think that $6 is too much for a large drink? Okay, for the record, everyone raised their hand, okay? So how many people would think $12 is too much for a drink? Yeah, everybody raise their hand again. So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, isn't a similar like promotional deal would be like if you were to bring this back?
Y'all
then
fill it
You would fill it.
for the, for
drink
like
would
a
be
fixed
free.
price.
Yes.
Or a fixed price.
Yes, you could do that. As a matter of fact, I wrote an article, you guys don't know this, but I write for Film Journal magazine, and my last article that I wrote was about refillable popcorn tins, or buckets. Some circuits will sell you a bucket of popcorn, it's made out of plastic, and for $20. And then every time you come back to the theater, you can get popcorn for $2. So, what's good about that?
Keeps people coming back.
Well, you hope it keeps people coming back, yeah.
Even if they don't, they already paid.
They pay $20 on the front end. Now, the issue that you might end up with as a person that runs the movie business or stadiums or amusement parks is that you don't know where that bucket's been. So I have known people that keep the bucket in the trunk of their car. And then they bring the bucket in, and is it a sanitary vessel? No, and then they're putting popcorn in it, eating it. If they get sick, who's responsible? Yeah, the seller. So there's a little bit of a danger involved. Here's the other thing, it does work for you though. If you do that kind of a program, it's almost like a loyalty program. So I want to go to the movies, and there's a Carmike Cinema, and there's an AMC Cinema. Okay? Which one am I going to go to? Well, who had the popcorn tub and I get the $2 refill? That's where I'm going. Okay, so it's kind of an incentive for repeat visits to that particular location. In this particular case, these cups were used as incentives for employees. So we had collectible cups, but they were plastic cups like you see at stadiums with the Star Wars logo on there. And what we did is we told every employee, whoever sold 200 souvenir cups got one of these as an employee incentive. Make sense? So now all the employees at Malco, including Ash, have one as well as you. So does that answer your question about the cups?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Last week we did some stuff and did some studies. So this week I'm going to give you a little quiz and see how much you remember from what we did last week. We'll pick up from there. At the top of the page, please put your name and your email address, please. The email address you see most often, that way if I need to contact you, I'll have it. Thank you. All right, who's finished? Shouldn't take that long. You want to collect the papers? Ashley? All right, who found that difficult? Why? See, first of all, we talked about this last week. I can understand why you might find it
Yeah, but it
difficult.
was a week ago.
See, that's my point. Do you remember what we talked about last week? I said, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna go all week, and then you're gonna show up on Friday, and so what else are you supposed to turn in today?
The 5
Homework.
goals.
Yeah.
5 goals.
So you have your 5 goals?
Yes.
Okay, let's turn those in.
I have a Word document, do you want me to email that to you?
Yes, please.
Do you want our email address on this one as well?
No, thank you. I just want to be sure what I have. I try to set up a file, and then that way I can give everybody the information.
Okay, cool.
Mine is also on this document.
Okay. So do you know what my email address is?
Still
During the
just
break,
right.
I'll go downstairs and send it to you from the computer.
Ariel, last week I passed out business cards to everybody so they would have my cell phone number
Okay. I think I can do it.
and my email address. Okay. All right, so I always like to try to start out with something that's a little off the wall. So up on the screen, you see 9 dots, and we call this the 9 dots game. Has anybody played the 9 dots game before? You have? Okay, so you can't play. What I want you to do on a piece of paper is put 9 dots equidistant apart so it looks like a square. Now here's your challenge. The challenge is to use only 4 lines and connect all 9 dots. Now the lines have to be linear or straight. They can't be curvy. And if you do it correctly, you don't pick your pen or pencil up off the paper. So you're going to make 4 lines. So for example, if you went from here to here, that'd be 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, but that dot's not connected. So that wouldn't be correct. You could go 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, but these 2 are not connected. You can go diagonally. So should we give them a hint, Ariel?
I've played it before, but like I said, I never got
Oh, you never figured it out?
correctly, yes.
Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. All good managers think outside the box. Is that fair? All good managers think outside the box. You figured out?
I remember, it's similar to the game where like you have all these houses and you have to connect like the light, the water, or heat, and something else to the house, and yeah, you have to go outside the box.
You want me to give you the answer? Are you tired of racking your brain?
Do you have to like, does the line have to go through all 3 of them?
What do you mean, all 3 of them?
Like,
It has to go through all 9 of them.
oh, I understand that, but as far as like which direction you go.
Let's start right here. Line number 1. Here to here. Okay? Line number 2. From here down to here. Line number 3, all the way out to here. Line number 4. There. We've connected all 9 dots with 4 lines. You guys were all trying to do inside the box, weren't you? You're trying to do one of these, maybe one of those, maybe one of those. Right? So, I think this is a good exercise, specifically for students that are about to graduate and get out into the real world, because you're going to be challenged. There are going to be people out there that are very experienced, and they're going to know what's going on in the world, and they're going to count on you with your new energy and your new motivation, okay, to give them new ideas. And if you get trapped inside the box, you're going to have issues. You won't be as outstanding as you could be. If you remember last week, we talked about goals. We talked about you establishing yourself as managers. And I kind of highlighted some of the different books. And this particular book was Strength Finders, right? And it said, basically, find your strength and exercise yourself where your strengths are. Don't worry so much and spend a lot of time on your weaknesses. And we talked about emotional intelligence, right? And we did the exercise with Sam Service. And we understood that Sam was a loyal employee, right? But Sam had some issues. And he had to try to overcome those issues. This particular book right here is called The Essentials. It's Harvard Business Review's 10 must-reads. So it really reviews 10 business books. So if you don't want to go out and buy the entire book, this instrument right here really is like Cliff Notes for the other books. Make sense? And so it highlights a lot of the things that I was talking about earlier. One of the things that you have to establish early on is you have to understand what your prevailing values are. Because when you get out into the real world and you want to start working, you're going to want to find a job that fits your prevailing values. I'll give you an example. Ariel, last week I gave a kind of a long dissertation about my career and my resume and background. And one of the things that I did was I had the opportunity to go to Southland Greyhound Park and renovate the entire facility. And it was a great job. I mean, we got to buy all new flatware and glassware and all new renovations and a gourmet dining room. And we had fast casual and brand new concessions and new equipment. And if you're a manager of any resource, it's a whole lot more fun to work with new stuff than old stuff, right? So I really enjoyed the job. One of the issues was the secondary revenue stream at the racetrack was food service, okay? What was their number one revenue stream?
Gaming.
Gaming, exactly. They wanted people to bet on the races. And the average person would bet somewhere around $125 on each visit for that night. They call it the handle. So they take all the money, all right, that's bet on every race. The state of Arkansas gets 10%. The people that manage the facility get 10%. The 80% that's left over is divided among the people that have winning tickets. That's called pari-mutuel betting. It's not based on odds. It's based on how much money is bet. The average amount of money that was raised, or the per capita income on food service, was about $25. So where do you think their emphasis was? Ownership, board of directors, where do you think the emphasis was?
Gaming.
Gaming. And when you say that, explain yourself.
Making bets on the races.
Making bets. How many bets?
Depending on how many races there are.
Yeah, there were typically 12 races a night.
And then 12 bets.
12 bets. Or just because there are 12 races doesn't mean you can place one bet. You can place a bet to win, place, show, quinellas where you pick 2 dogs to finish first and second, a trifecta where you pick 3 dogs, finish first, second, and third. All the odds paid a different amount of money. Okay? Here's what I wanted to stress. They wanted more people to come to the racetrack because if they were getting $125 per person and they were getting 1,000 people a night, what would happen if they got 2,000 people a night? They would double their revenues, right? How do you think they did that? They would run food promotions. So for example, on Fridays we had a catfish dinner We had a very large ballroom downstairs, a catering facility. And in that ballroom, we would probably sell 5,000 catfish dinners. The hook was that the catfish dinner was $2. So you got 3 pieces of fried catfish, hush puppies, coleslaw, French fries, the whole meal,
For $2.
$2.
Wow, what a steal.
Yeah, what a steal, exactly. And so people would come in on Friday nights, and instead of having, 1,000 people, we would end up with 5,000 to 6,000 people. So here's what happened to me. I'm not a prude by any means, and I have been known to buy a ticket every once in a while or play some blackjack, all right? But what I was watching is people who didn't have money, okay, to pay their light bill, take their paycheck, come in, get a catfish dinner, place a bet, lose their money, and leave. Now, is that my fault?
No.
No. No. Because we all have responsibilities to discipline ourselves and spend and save and manage our own money. But my personal prevailing values basically had a conflict with encouraging people to come to the dog track to bet. Does that make sense? I can't control them, but I felt like I was a part of that. And so after 2 years, I left. Because it wasn't that I didn't love the job. It was that I wasn't putting everything I had into my job with love and passion and, boy, this is fantastic, because I saw some of the darker side of the business. That make sense? So, when you do that, you have to find your prevailing values. Now, last week I passed out this sheet. You still have your sheet? Here's the exercise.
I get one.
What I'd like you to do is look at these particular values, and I want you to circle the 3 that represent you the best. The 3 that represent you the best. All right. I don't want those back. I want you to keep those someplace close, and as you start to look for jobs, refer to that piece of paper there and ask yourself, does this particular piece of employment fit my particular values? One of my values was my family, and I got married at a very early age. I got married when I was 20 years old, okay? And I had my first son when I was 21. And when I was 21 years old, I opened the Peabody Hotel downtown Memphis. Okay? And I was the assistant food and beverage director. And anytime you open a hotel or any property, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time. And I literally felt responsible for everything that took place in that hotel. Matter of fact, as the assistant food and beverage director, we went through 3 food and beverage directors in my tenure. In other words, 9 months. I worked there 9 months without a day off. And what happened to me is one day I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm coming to work, okay, at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning to be sure that the breakfast is out on time, the chef is there, the catering department's got the mayor's breakfast ready, and then there would be a wedding that night, or there'd be some special function for some celebrity here in Memphis, and so I was constantly at the hotel. And what I realized is it didn't fit one of my prevailing values, which was I love my family. I had no family time. I had no balance. And you'll hear about that a little bit later when we get into some other things about your management styles. So when you start looking for jobs, if for example you love your family, maybe you want to find a job where you can work at home and you're an entrepreneur, you work out of a home office. If you have I love my family, maybe you don't travel all around the world because it's a conflict. You can't go to the ballet recitals or the music concerts or the football games or the soccer games. So anyway, when you look at this, I want you to think in terms of you making yourself the best you can be, and you don't have conflicts with your prevailing values. All right. We're going to start talking a little bit today in this next section on planning, the first pillar of POA management philosophy. You may want to write this down. It might be on the test. Planning is the essence of management. Planning is the essence of management.
So in the book, we're on page 31.
Right, that's correct.
Just check.
And Rachel, thank you very much, because if you have your book, you can open it and follow along. It's almost like I'll read the book to you. So when I first heard this statement, I thought, yeah, that makes sense. And then I thought, what is essence? What is essence? How do you define essence?
The like, the substance of something. Like the.
So how many people have how many people have iPhones? Do you ever Google things? See, right now you could Google essence. Essence means the basics, the fundamentals. It's the foundation. So planning is the basics of management. Effective managers consider the best use of all their available assets in 5 basic categories when designing a plan to achieve their objectives. And we're going to talk a lot about going forward. How do we do this with event management planning? How do we do this with creating menus? How do we do this if we're going to run promotions? What we call it is the 5 M's. So is this still 31 or is it 32?
31.
31. So, Rachel, since you have your book open, what are the 5 M's?
Manpower, money, material, method, machines.
Right, and so that I don't become a sexist, I put men and women. How's that? Is that
Human
fair?
power.
As opposed to manpower? Human power. Labor. So anytime we're going to create a plan, we want to determine what kind of people do I need working? What are the skill levels? How many do I need? The second piece is money. If I'm going to start a business or I'm going to run a program, how much capital do I need? What do I need to buy as far as equipment? What kind of liquid cash do I need for the cash registers? What kind of investments am I going to have to make? Am I going to be able to buy things over time? Do I need credit? How many people have $1 million? None of you have $1 million, right? Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Good for you. Not yet. If you were to go into a particular facility such as Liberty Bowl, and you wanted to manage the Liberty Bowl for the city of Memphis, they would probably require that you pay them some money, okay? We call it a commission. And then they would want you to make some improvements to the facilities. And maybe they say, okay, we need you to give us $1 million in new popcorn machines and soda machines. You're going to have to figure out where you're going to get the money. So do you have capital? Do you have the ability to borrow the money? What are you going to do? The next piece is materials. So what are materials, Kevin?
Would be like the actual products.
The actual products that you're selling. So for example, we might need hot dogs and buns. We need cups. Probably need napkins and straws, lids, soda, nacho chips, popcorn bags. Those are the materials. The next piece is methods. So how are we going to do it? We have to have a plan on how we're going to execute this plan. Typically, methods falls into a category of training. So we're going to train all of the employees to work in one specific manner that meets the goals or objectives that we've set. So what are the two objectives in this channel of business that we talked about last week? Yeah, and that was on the test, and you guys said it was hard, the quiz. So you got one right, right? Yeah. So if we want to create the best service standards, do we have a plan for that? How do we do that? And then last is machines. The machines are going to be the equipment. I remember probably 1985, there was a gentleman came to me. We were managing all these different facilities, and I happened to be at the zoo. And he came to me and he said, you know, I want to get into the business of selling snow cones. Can you give me some advice? Can you tell me what to do? Sure. So he says, well, you know, if I start this business, can I sell snow cones here at the zoo? I said, well, we have a conflict of interest in this particular case. But you could sell them at the flea market, and you could pay me a commission, and I can let you set up a cart there or something like that. At that particular point, he had no machines, he had no methods, no material, he had some money. He and his wife were going to run this. It turns out that he was a fireman, and he wanted something to do on the weekends when he wasn't at the firehouse. You know, all these years later, you would recognize him if you saw him at the Mid-South Fair, one of those locations. He was the snow cone guy here in the city. He ended up growing his business pretty significantly. Anyway, if you're going to start a business, any business, stadiums, arenas, zoos, hotels, movie theaters, this is the basics or the essence. You need 5 different strategies on the planning side. The 5 M's. Remember that might be on the test. Now, anytime you create a business and you're going to start a plan, okay, you're going to have to think in terms of what's my strategy? What do I want to achieve? How am I going to get there? A lot of people confuse tactics and strategy. Tactics are typically the action steps to achieve the strategy. So my strategy is I want to create a better service plan for my location. I want to create a better service plan. In other words, how do I get our customers to feel like they really enjoy the experience of being in my facility? Recently, this is kind of an interesting phenomenon. The Atlanta Falcons football team just built a new football stadium. You guys familiar with that? Anybody know anything about Atlanta?
I know they've got like a whole bunch of like restaurants and stuff in there.
Yeah. They built what they call, it's now sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. So it's called the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Okay? And the owner of the Falcons is a gentleman by the name of Arthur Blank. And Arthur Blank has listened to his customers, and the customers are saying food service and concessions are too expensive. To effectively address that complaint, he dropped all the prices in concessions this year when they opened the new stadium. I think sodas are $2. Popcorn is $2. Hot dogs, $2. What was his strategy? What is his strategy?
Are the tickets more expensive?
No, the tickets are about the same.
Oh, okay.
Atlanta Falcons, NFL, pro football. What were you saying?
Listen to the people's complaints,
He listens to the people's complaints. What's his strategy?
meeting their needs and their accommodations.
Gaining their confidence and coming back and buying more tickets. Okay, so anybody ever go to a Redbirds game here in town? Yeah. And what does the ticket cost? Okay, I'm looking at mostly ladies, so I know the guys are buying the tickets. You don't know what the ticket cost is, right? No, you have to buy your own tickets?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, you never go. Okay. You go?
Not very often. I have no idea what the price is.
Okay. A typical ticket is going to be somewhere around $12. That's a low-end ticket. That's not like sitting behind home plate, which would be $40. But let's just assume we're going to go, you're going to take your family. You have 2 children and a wife, all right? 4 people. Typical ticket is how much?
$12.
So how much have we spent?
Well, don't the kids?
$48.
Under
Yeah.
50.
Yeah, right at $50.
Yeah.
Okay, now everybody has to have a soda and a nachos, right? And probably some ice cream. And now what have they spent? Another $12 per person,
Yeah.
okay? Or probably more because prices are a little bit higher. But let's just say another $50 in food and beverage. All right, and then everybody wants a souvenir, right? A pennant or a hat. So now I spent another $50.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay to park, right?
Mhm.
Anybody been downtown for Memphis and Maine, you have to pay to park?
So you could easily, a family outing is easily cost you over $150.
Probably closer to 200.
Right.
They have looked at Major League Baseball and they said a family of 4 to go to a baseball game, like in Atlanta, the Braves game, St. Louis, the Cardinals game, you're going to spend $250 for a family of 4. So, Arthur Blank listened to his customers. His strategy was to win back their confidence and say, I'm listening to you, we're going to do that. What were the tactics?
Lower prices so families felt more confident in
And what would they do?
Come back.
Instead of buying 1 hot dog, they would buy
Two.
2 hot dogs because it was half price. Instead of getting 1 large drink and sharing it among 4 people, what happened? He sold 4 drinks. The same thing is kind of happening in the movie industry right now. Have you noticed that we're starting to see bar, alcohol, heavier food sold? Yeah. So why would we do that?
To encourage like adults and other people to come and spend their money there instead of going and having a drink before. They can just do everything there.
That's one reason. That's exactly right. In other words, we want you to extend the length of time that you're at the movie theater. Okay? Well, also, we want to let you know that you don't have to sit at home. You can come here and have a beer or a glass of wine. But what's the real strategy?
Bring in more revenue
Bring in more revenue. How?
by having a bar or something like that where people can go and spend money while they're there.
So if you go to a movie theater and you get the large drink, right? How many people go to Malco theaters? How many of you get the large drink? Sometimes.
Only because they're like for 25 cents more.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love
yeah.
you. You're
Yeah, that's
really
the-
good at this.
that's
I'm like,
the only reason I
25
do
cents,
that.
sure. And then they're like, it's
Yeah.
like $7. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually more like $6, but thanks for the plug. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the large drink. It's 44 ounces. How many of those do you drink when you go to the movie?
If like 2 people are splitting it, you probably need to get a refill.
Yeah. Okay, but typically you only get 1, right?
Yeah.
If you go and you have a Ghost River beer,
Yeah, you're gonna want more.
You're gonna want more than
the,
one.
yeah, so a beer's $7 and it's 12 ounces, you probably drink 2 or 3. Glass of wine, same way. At 6 ounces, you drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine. So you, yeah, yeah, exactly.
2-for-1 beers on Tuesday night.
Y'all do the Tuesday ticket price,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I didn't know was a thing.
I actually have a question. This might be a little off topic. How do our movie theaters making money with this movie pass thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are y'all making money with that?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
You pay like $100.
Yeah, you pay like a month.
Like-
I have it, and you
Yeah.
pay monthly.
you
And
pay
you can-
$10 and you can go once.
I have it to where I can see any movie I want, 1 free movie every single day,
Hey, that's
Yeah.
correct.
What?
and I
Yeah.
pay per month.
Right.
Go alone.
How much a month?
I got it for Christmas. I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's somewhere about like $50 a month or something like
No,
that.
no, it's $10 a month.
Oh, it's $10 a month. Okay, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
And
don't
you can
pay
see
for it.
unlimited movies for $10.
No. You pay $10 a month and you can go to 1 movie a day.
Yeah, I guess. but-
So you could go-
Basically.
That's
Yeah.
basically unlimited.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's, will you hand me a pen or one of those markers?
No, what I'm saying is that even though you're getting that discount, the person that's going with you,
All right,
they have to pay.
we're off topic. So Rachel, just so you know, she threw us off topic, so we might be 15 minutes late today.
Schedule though.
It's
Just
okay.
trying to stay organized. It's one of my.
That's good.
It's
That's
I want
good.
to see if this is.
Here's how the model, the business model works for movie theaters. And somebody in the room at some point has to ask me about the business model for stadiums and arenas. Okay? We don't want to do it all right now, but we're going to do it because they're a little bit different, but they're somewhat similar. So you have what we call film cost. And every film that's released is negotiated with the studios at a price. So for example, Star Wars just came out. And the studio said, you're going to give us 70% of every ticket. 70%. All right?
Actually,
Pardon me?
is that real or are those real numbers?
That's a real number.
Wow.
It's close, not exact. If I said 68%, it would be 70.
Yeah.
But let's just say 70% because it's a round
Oh, that's
number.
a lot though.
Yeah.
Movie ticket costs $10. How much do we give the studios?
70%.
What's 70% of $10?
$7.
$7. So we're going to give them $7 to the studios. Okay? Now the state of Tennessee has sales tax, and it's 9.25, right? So can I round that to 10%?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another $1. Tennessee sales tax. Okay. How much money does that leave me out of a $10 ticket?
$2.
$2.
Well, maybe $2 off the Star Wars. That's crazy.
Well, quite frankly, there are a lot of movies that are similar to that. Some of them are 65, some of them are 58, some of them, they change. So the question is, how do we make money at the movie theaters? You can't run a building. The other piece of information that you have to understand is, very much like hotels, theaters operate on what we call occupancy. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's our week, right? %70 of all of our revenue comes from Friday afternoon till Sunday afternoon, within 48 hours. Okay? How many days? 2 days. Makes 70% of the revenue. The other 30% is broken up in all these different days. How many days a week does the air conditioner have to be on? Or the heat? The lights? Projectors? Have you ever been in a movie theater where it's you and 2 other people and that's it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not very efficient,
That's
right?
my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this $2 is trying to manage the entire facility the entire week. That's why you have to have secondary revenue. You have to have concessions. You have to have video games. You have to have bars, so forth and so on.
And this formula totally doesn't work for the summer drive-in, does it?
Yeah, yeah. So the issue is that if we were going to talk in terms of stadiums and arenas, the numbers could be very similar to this, okay? Stadiums and arenas, Aramark, you guys familiar with Aramark? Aramark, I think they manage the food service here. They have some stadiums and arenas, right? They will go into a particular municipality and say, we'll run your food service operations and we'll pay you 45% or 50% of all of our sales. We'll get it back to you as a commission. Is that a good deal or a bad deal? Good deal or bad deal?
Say it one more time. 50% commission.
Yep.
I feel like it would. Is that not a good deal? I feel like it's not
I
good.
don't like paying 50% of anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Okay? So the question is, it depends on what the sales are and what we're going to start talking about right now. Okay? How do you structure a plan so that you can figure out what your commission rates would be? Early in my career, there were people trying to get into the business, and you would bid these particular accounts out. And you want it really, really bad. So you say, okay, I'll give you 55% if you let me have the business. I don't want Professor Eder to get the business. Okay? And then you find out about halfway into the season that you're losing a lot of money because by the time you pay them 55%, you got nothing left for yourself. And you can't buy hot dogs and sodas and buns and napkins and the materials that you need. That make sense? So the next module that we go through, I'm going to teach you how to look at that. But you asked me here, we got off topic a little bit. This is kind of the story about movie theaters. So this is why we have to charge what we do on. Now, if we turn around and we change the ticket price to $20, this right here would change to $14. This would changed to $2. And now I'm going to make $4. Can I run the business on $4 per ticket?
Twice as much as before, so yes.
Yeah, but it'll drive away people because they won't want to pay $20 to see a movie.
Not so much. No, $4 really isn't enough either. Okay? So if I went to $30 a ticket and we started coming down, then it might be $6 that I'd get. That make sense? At some point, the ticket price will be high enough to where they'll pay for the building, but in fact, it's going to upset you so much that you can't afford to go to the
Yeah,
movies.
you'd have to include like free food and drink in that cost.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Arthur Blank is doing with the Falcons. He's running an experiment. He's dropped the concession prices in half to try to get people coming back to the stadium and becoming loyal to the Atlanta Falcons. That's his strategy. In other words, he knows what to do when everything was already fine and there was nothing to do. The tactics are basically short term. How am I going to do something today to get everybody back? So knowing what to do when there's something to do. In other words, what they want to do is create loyalty. How do we create loyalty? Well, we get people to come back on a regular basis. All right. So, here's what I want you to remember out of this session this morning. Planning is the essence of management. If the plan is sound, success is possible. But it is not guaranteed. Remember that. If the plan is sound, success is possible, but it's not guaranteed. In my classes, I tell a story about how I was managing the Liberty Bowl Stadium. And every year, it just so happens that the Liberty Bowl game is the coldest day of the year. Am I right? I mean, I tell all my friends, if you want to know the coldest day of the year, look on the calendar and see where the Liberty Bowl game is. Right? So after about 4 years of operating the Liberty Bowl, what we found is that from August to November, the temperatures were usually pretty warm, which meant we sold a lot of cold beverages. So we had souvenir cups and ice and sodas, right? And then what happened in December? It got cold, and how many people want cold sodas in December? Yeah. Actually, they do. I'll tell you why. They buy the cold soda, they pour the soda out, and they put the whiskey in. That's why we kept... What do you mean, yep? Is that what you do?
I've never done
You
that.
know, oh, okay.
Ever. Never, ever.
I have to be careful because sometimes in my class I have people that are underage.
I'm 22, I'm cool.
Okay, you're good. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, the University of Tennessee was going to play Minnesota. And I was going to get very, very prepared. I was going to follow what I've been preaching. I was going to execute a plan. I was going to organize that plan, and we were going to take action. I was going to sell coffee. Now, typically at the Liberty Bowl Stadium, I bet they don't sell 10 cups of coffee in an entire game with 45 to 50,000 people there. So if you've got some 40 concessions, all right, how many pots of coffee are you going to make? Yeah, you make 45. How many are you going to throw away? 45. You do it just in case one customer says, can I have a cup of coffee? But on Liberty Bowl day, when it's ice cold, everybody wants coffee. So, in this particular case, we didn't spend a lot of money, okay, in our planning on machines that made coffee. We didn't have coffee makers. So on this big day with 60,000 people coming for the Liberty Bowl game, Tennessee versus Minnesota, I took action. One of my plans was to rent 50-cup percolators for every concession stand. So I got 2. So I had a minimum 100 cups of coffee at all times. Make sense? And then what else did I have to get?
Coffee cups,
What kind of coffee cups?
insulated coffee cups.
Yeah, like styrofoam cups, which we typically didn't use. We always used paper wax cups for sodas. What else did I have to get?
Lids.
Lids. What else did I have to get?
Cream and sugar.
Cream and sugar. What else did I have to get?
Straws. Let's say
Straws. Yeah, stir sticks. What else did I have to get?
Little things that go over the cup.
Oh, you're talking about sleeves. We didn't have those back then. We weren't sophisticated. Starbucks wasn't invented then. Okay? You get my drift. There was a lot of planning that had to go. How many people did I have to bring in to operate the coffee machines? at least one, right? Because this is a new piece of equipment. Somebody had to manage the coffee machines. So a lot of execution went into the planning and trying to get ready, because in this particular year, normally I would buy for the Liberty Bowl game, I would buy somewhere around 40,000 souvenir cups for the sodas. And I'd always have a bunch left over because it was cold. And in this particular case, I thought, I'm not going to sell large drinks. I'm going to sell coffee. So I bought 10,000 souvenir cups because I want to sell out. When the game is over, I'm not going to have, like in February or March, a chance to sell tickets, the souvenir cups to the Liberty Bowl. So I got 10,000 cups and 50,000 coffee cups. Right? So have I done my job? The plan is sound, right? So I'm watching the news the week before the game, and I'm looking at the weather, and sure enough, the weatherman's right on target. It's supposed to be 13 degrees on this Friday. The game starts at 10. No, excuse me, starts at 6 p.m. in the afternoon on a Friday. I'm like, yes, I finally got this right. You know, I'm going to have plenty of coffee. It's going to be cold. We're going to make additional revenue because I'm prepared. As we're stocking the stands and we're getting everything ready, Wednesday, I'm watching the 10 o'clock news at night. Well, it's going to be 13 degrees on Friday, but on Saturday a warm front's going to come through, and everybody's going to be happy on Saturday and Sunday because it's going to go up to 65 degrees on Saturday and should be somewhere around 70 on Sunday.
Oh, Memphis.
I'm like, wow.
But the game's on Friday.
That's right. The game's on Friday, so I'm covered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thursday night, I go to bed. It's cold. Friday morning, I get up, go to work. 6 o'clock in the morning. It's cold. Guess what happens at noon?
Sun comes up.
The warm front comes through. Okay? And when they kicked off, it was 63 degrees that night.
Oh my God, that's so frustrating.
So what did I need?
Sodas.
Soda cups. And what did I have?
Coffee
Coffee.
cups.
Yeah. See, success was possible, but it wasn't guaranteed. If you do not have a plan, okay, if your plan is faulty, failure is inevitable. I'll give you another example. Write this down. You'll want to remember this. If you work in stadiums, arenas, if you work in any resort, you need 1/2 pound of ice for every person that's in your facility. 1/2 pound of ice for every person that's in the facility. So, if you have 50,000 people come into a stadium, how much ice do you need?
25.
25 what?
50,000 people, we need 25,000 pounds.
That's right. You need 25,000 pounds of ice, right? So when I left Midland Food Service and went to Malco Theaters, there was a guy that took my job, and he was a little bit, I'll say, arrogant and boastful, and was going to teach everybody else how to do the business better than I did. And we had just renewed a contract with Ole Miss, and their first game was August 31st. It was like Labor Day weekend, and it was 112 degrees.
Yeah, it was.
112 degrees on a Saturday. They ran out of ice before the game started.
That sucks.
Was
Yeah.
it a day game?
It was a Saturday afternoon game, like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh my God.
But
Yeah.
what if you have people that come up and get a drink, and then there's other people that come up and they just want a cup of ice?
What do you mean?
Like, what if people, I mean, do you account for that when more people want, like, 1/2 pound? What if,
Well, that's kind of a traditional thing. So
Okay.
as we go through the class, I'm going to give you some ratios.
okay.
So for example, you need 1 point of sale for every 175 people that come to a facility. 150. So if I've got 50,000 people coming to the game, how many points of sale should I have? Cash registers open. You guys are going to have to bring calculators. I got 50,000 people coming to the game. Attendance. How many POS do I need?
400.
Point of sale for every how many?
125 or 150?
So here's we're going to go back to tactics and strategy. Some people say 175. Okay? So if you divide 50,000 times 175, you can give me a number. What's that number?
285.
285?
Mhm.
So I need 285 points of sale. What if I wanted to offer better service? This is what they did at Falcon Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They decided to have more points of sale. What would I do with this number? How about
No, lower.
lower? So let's change it to 150. Tell me what the number is. So I've got 1 point of sale for every 150 people.
300.
333?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden we have better service because we have more points of sale. What if I wanted to go all the way in and have like platinum level service? What would I do?
Keep raising.
More POS?
Right, so
Yeah.
change that number. So a lot of times when these companies put out bids and they say, hey, I'll pay you 45% commissions and I'll also have 1 point of sale for every 125 people that come. Make sense? I want to give better service. Well, as these points of sale go up, what also goes up?
You gotta pay
Cost
for
of
it.
labor.
Huh?
Cost of labor.
Cost of labor, exactly. So here's the next ratio. You need 1.5 employees for every point of sale. So how many employees do I have to schedule for this event?
Well, 50,000 divided by 125 is 400.
It is 400?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then you divide by 1.5.
400 times 1.5 tells me how many employees I need. 600? 600 employees. Okay, platinum service. Let's go back up here. Let's change this to 175 where we started. And I think this was 285, right? Times 1.5. How many employees do I need now?
427.
427.
What's that?
So 428. We don't have half. Which one's going to cost more on game day? Yeah, paying 600 employees is going to cost a whole lot more than paying 428 employees. Matter of fact, it's probably what, about 35% more.
And that's only for people operating POS. That's not.
That's, well, no, this is people working in the concession stand.
Oh.
So let me draw this for you real quick. This really is coming in the next couple lessons, but so let's assume that you have a concession stand or food service, kind of looks like this, and these little circles here are points of sale. Okay? You typically have to have a cash register for each person, right? Or an employee working each cash register, that's what I meant to say. These are shoulders, these are hands, head, shoulder. Okay? So I have one for each one of those, right? Then you have a back counter that typically has the food or whatever. You have one employee that stands kind of between them. How many employees is that?
7.
How many points of sale?
4.
So is that 1.5? 1.5 would be 6, wouldn't it? Yeah. So it vacillates a little bit from concession stand to concession stand, but we call this, right here, this is called the triangle service. There's always a triangle. So this person right here is taking the order, and if they want nachos and a hot dog, this person turns around and gets the nachos and the hot dog and brings it forward. And if they wanted a soda, this person would get the soda because the soda machine's usually right there between these two. This person lines up, all he wants is soda, he gets a soda and takes care of the cash register. Okay. It's time to take a break. So, I told you we typically will go 50 minutes and then take a break, and then go 50 minutes and take a break. So we kind of went over just a little bit.